for attending this What to Expect During the Write-On session. My name is Rachel and I'm one of the 4 notes and comments editors who are coordinating the write-on process. So I'll have Allison, Gina, Sarah, you guys can all introduce yourselves.
Hi everyone, my name is Allison Donick. I'm also one of the notes and comments editors.
Hi, I'm Sheena Denny. I'm one of the notes and comments editors.
And I'm Sarah Westerberg, and I'm one of the notes and comments editors.
Great. And so the reason I just point that out right away is, well, you guys might have questions about law review generally, and that's great questions to ask any of the board members. If you have questions about the write-on process, we are going to be the 4 faces answering your questions through the mhsl.submissions@gmail.com email, which is where we'll ask you to funnel any and all questions. So go ahead, next slide, please. So you're here today, I'm guessing, because you're interested in law review, which is awesome. So we're going to just tell you a little bit more about what law review is, and then focus more specifically on what you can expect during the write-on session. Feel free to ask any questions in the chat during the session, or if you want to jump in and raise your hand, that's totally welcome as well. We are here to just try to get all the information we can to you. And so don't be afraid to ask questions. Next slide, please. So quickly, what is law review? Well, law review is a student-run journal that was in 1974. And if you guys are interested on the actual, how Mitchell-Hamline founded their journals, it's a really interesting story and is listed on our webpage. And if you have a moment, go read it. But essentially, it's okay if you don't know what law review is at this point in your law school career, because I, last year, sitting in your shoes, really had no idea. I knew that it looked good on a resume, but I didn't know what they actually did. And it really took me this last year to still figure that out. But our team of associates and board members finds authors and publishes their articles that are written about legal topics of many different interests. So local interest, national interests, and these articles will end up being available on Westlaw and Lexis. And our journal is also really unique in the fact that we are a fully online journal, and we don't actually publish any of the articles anymore. So like I said, our law review board is comprised of somewhere around 21 people, and we all have a lot of different roles and positions that might not be the most important to you right now, but just know that there's a lot of opportunity. If you get involved as an associate, you can continue your involvement in law review the next year and get to work with some really awesome people that I think are, really great team. We all have an interest in making this successful journal, and so it's already been a rewarding experience. With that, I'll go ahead and have the law review board members introduce themselves if they are on, starting with Catherine.
Hi all, my name's Catherine, and I am the incoming editor-in-chief for the Law Review Board. And I'm just really excited to see so many faces here today. Like Rachel was saying, we were all in your shoes at precisely this time last year. And so please do not hesitate to reach out if you have any questions whatsoever. If you're not sure about the process, I, like many of us on the board, didn't really understand what law review was before. So please, no question is silly. And so I'll pass it off to Andy.
Hey everyone, I'm Andy Taylor, the Associate Editor-in-Chief of the Law Review. It's good to see so mmany people here on a Sunday right before finals. I know it's busy, and I'll just make one quick point, which is that the write-on process, as you'll find out, is it's a little bit like taking a final before you've actually taken your class. It's kind of the opposite of what you normally expect, but I assure you that if any of this seems intimidating, it's definitely doable for people like me who are part-time students, who work full-time, have kids, have other responsibilities in life. I think the benefits of law review are great. And then once you've gone through this process, there are some, phenomenal opportunities, which I'm sure we'll be talking about more here in a moment. So thanks for being here.
Deb and Amy are both on, if the two of you want to introduce yourselves as well.
Hi, I'm Amy. I am one of the online editors for the Volume 48. You will probably be hearing a lot more from me as the fall semester kicks off, but probably not for most of the summer. But what Andy's talking about is totally true. Like, if I can get onto law review, you can get onto law review. And it's just a matter of getting it done. So any questions at all, super excited to answer, really excited to meet you guys and read your write-ons.
Hi everyone, I'm Deb Alexander. I'm a 2L in the EJD program. I'm one of the online editors along with Amy. I absolutely, I think Andy's description was really, really great about taking a final before the class. And I also had no idea what law review was. So I think we can probably stop saying that and let you know what it is now, but you're not alone if that's how you felt. I think definitely the law review write-on process was way more intimidating than law review itself. Definitely, I have felt that it's worth it. I've got kids and a job and all kinds of things and was able to make it happen. The more you learn about it beforehand and ask questions, I think you'll be good. I will stop talking.
Perfect. Thank you all. I will hand this over to Sheena.
Thanks, Rachel. So as an associate, there are about 4 things that you'll be doing. The first thing you'll be doing is conducting authority checks, which is basically verifying the substance of citations, checking quoted language, dates, and also sometimes checking the relevance of a source. We're going to talk a little bit more about that later on in the presentation, and we'll also have an example for you. You'll also be correcting citations, and we do use the Bluebook for that to correct those. You'll be required to edit for grammar and spelling and punctuation of an article. And you will have to do a long paper, and it's no different than doing it in any other class. Before you graduate, you have to satisfy your long paper requirement anyway. The benefit of doing it on law review is that you can choose your topic, and it's basically limitless. So there are a lot of benefits of being on law review. One is you'll gain the confidence and proficiency in researching, writing, and editing. I know that the long paper, writing a long paper does kind of seem intimidating, but having written mine, I feel way better and more confident in writing other papers in my classes now. You will have an opportunity to get published. So we'll talk about a little bit about that later, but you will be writing a case note, and we will be choosing one person this year to get published. It's a resume builder as well. We do plan on having associate offers to everyone, I believe early July, right before OCIs. So it looks really good to have on your resume. It's also a good way to get exposure to different areas of law. So for example, if you're into like intellectual property, you can read articles on like health law or criminal law, kind of makes you more of a well-rounded attorney. It's a great networking and relationship building. You heard from a few people who are part-time students, and oftentimes we don't get to meet the full-time students or certain faculty, but kind of being on law review, you get exposed to other people, and it's a great way to build your relationships. And one good thing is that it is a 3-credit pass-fail. So it makes it more manageable because you can kind of put that in place of another class. So how do you join? So registration is open now, and we'll have a link for you at the end of the presentation. It does close May 18th. So go ahead and register before the end of this presentation. The write-on process begins May 22nd and it goes to June 13th. So what that will consist of, you'll have 1 week to do a Bluebook quiz, and that will consist of 20 citations and 20 multiple choice questions, I believe, where you'll be doing authority checks. And there will be a short case note where you analyze a recent Minnesota Supreme Court case. So I'm going to pass it over to Sarah to talk about the Bluebook.
Thanks, Sheena. Okay, so I'm gonna talk to you guys about what the write-on process actually looks like, which I'm sure is why 95% of you are here. So basically, as everyone has mentioned, the registration is on our website. You can go here. I think it was put in the chat as well. I'm sure most of you have registered, but if you haven't, there's no detriment or negative to not register. I mean, I don't think I said that correctly. Anyway, register. When in doubt, just register. It's not a full commitment to anything. You might as well, is basically the mindset. Like Sheena mentioned, the dates you want to keep in mind are going to be for the Bluebook. It's the 22nd, which is the Saturday after finals are done. And then that's going to go for about 6 days and close that Friday. The case note will start the day after the Bluebook closes, and that'll go for about 2 weeks. And so we're hoping to have everything graded and have everyone, all the associate offers out to you by early to mid-July before OCI bidding starts. All of these deadlines are concrete, so there's really no exceptions for changing them. You just got to keep that in mind and plan accordingly. A good thing about this process is that everything is anonymous, so we don't know if you're the top 5 in your class. We don't know if you're male, female, white, black. We don't know anything about you. So you'll get an anonymous ID or a write-on name, and you'll use that for the whole process. And that's what the graders will see. They won't see your actual name or anything. A few things to keep in mind. Plagiarism, as always, is not tolerated. If we find out that someone was plagiarizing, there's a good chance you won't be asked to join law review, depending on the severity, and there can even be school sanctions for that. You can't work with others. It's not a group effort, at least not for the write-on process. As soon as you're an associate, reach out to anyone and everyone if you want. And then one thing that's really important this year specifically is that the Bluebook, you can use as many resources that aren't other people as you want, but with the case note, you're strictly prohibited to the resources we provide you, and I'll talk more about that in a second. But it's something to keep in mind because that's a really big rule, just like the plagiarism piece. Excuse me. Okay, so the Bluebook consists of 2 parts. It's all in the same document and everything. There's just 2 different things we're trying to test. So like Sheena said, with associates, you're doing a lot of citation corrections and a lot of what are called authority checks. So we want to test both of those. So with the first part, you'll have 20 citation questions that are fake. So the example I have here is Darth Vader versus Yoda. It's not a real case. Doesn't sound like a real case. But the point is you can't look it up in Westlaw. You actually have to look through all the rules, the Bluebook, the handbook, Chicago Manual of Style, and kind of figure out what rule applies based on the type of source. And then the second part are the authority checks. So that's mostly testing the accuracy of what the author is trying to say when they're citing a source. So a good example is the bottom here. We'll be testing things like pin cites, which is the accurate page number, maybe quotes, quoted language, spelling, authors' names, just stuff like that to make sure that what the author is saying in their article is actually accurate to the sources they're citing. Does anyone have any questions about the Bluebook specifically? Otherwise, we can go to the next slide. So after the Bluebook is done, that's when you'll start your case note. And the way the case note is formatted is we'll supply you with a Minnesota Supreme Court decision. Everyone will get the same case, and we want you to look at the history, relevant law, how that opinion has maybe affected the legal community, even something as simple as if the court got it right or wrong. That will be sent out, I believe that's a Saturday, the 29th at 9 a.m. And then you have 2 weeks to work on that before it's due on June 13th. There is a minimum page requirement, and the way it's split up is there's 8 pages of text, so that's your actual writing, and then 8 pages of endnotes or footnotes, which is going to be your citations. There is a maximum page requirement. You can't go over 20, so most people are somewhere between like 16 and 18. It is also a closed universe, which is what I was kind of hinting at before. So this year it's going to be everyone gets the same case, and it's also we provide you with the research. You don't have to go on Westlaw or Lexis and look for a bunch of cases. In fact, you shouldn't do that this year. So we'll give you everything you need. It's just your job to sift through it and figure out what works for your argument, what doesn't, what is maybe not relevant anymore because it's outdated or been overruled in some way. If you still don't know what a case note is, which I didn't at this point either, there is a how to write a case note session with Professor Knapp. If anyone knows him, he's great. That's going to be Wednesday after finals are done. And he'll go through and show you an example and give you kind of like a strategy on how to confront it, which I personally found very helpful. And if you can't make that, it will be recorded. And I think there's previous years recorded as well, all on the website. And then like Sheena said, the best submission this year. So one case note will be published. And then if you're not chosen for publication, it's not the end of the world. You can still write your long paper and then have that possibly published. And we're hoping to publish quite a few student papers this year.
All right, I just want to pause here for a second, see if anyone has any questions. I know this is a ton of information and maybe you don't even know exactly right now what your questions are, but just want to give everyone a chance to ask any questions right now. No? Okay, well, don't worry, there will be other opportunities. So I'm now going to tell you just kind of, talking to board members, some general tips and tricks for a successful write-on. The very first thing I want to note is that, as we've discussed, the write-on process will take 3 weeks, about 1 week for the Bluebook quiz, and then 2 weeks for the case note. Really important to keep in mind, though, that this 3 weeks is a window, not a time commitment. We absolutely do not expect you to dedicate, every spare minute during these 3 weeks to the write-on process. You've heard from board members, who were working full-time jobs, taking care of families. We understand that you have other things going on in your life other than the write-on process. And so this timeline is meant to accommodate the things. I love Andy's comment that the write-on is a bit like taking a final before you've taken the class. And it can be really intimidating, but also I want you to know that we do not expect you to have been, preparing in any way for the write-on process prior to the start. But there are some, things we want to share that, we as board members thought were helpful to know going into the write-on process last year. So for the Bluebook quiz, first I want to know, we know that not all 1L students have, a physical copy of the Bluebook this year, and that you haven't necessarily been using the Bluebook in your classes. Don't worry, you do not have to go out and buy a copy right now. We are working to make an online version of Bluebook accessible to people who do not have a copy. That said, for students who do have a copy of the Bluebook, I just want to quickly note that, if you use the Bluebook in LARC or lawyering last year, we mostly used these blue pages, which I don't know if you can see on this screen. For law review, we use the white pages, just a really simple distinction there to make sure that you're looking at the right rules. Another really helpful tip is to use the index of the Bluebook. You're going to have 20 citations that you have to check, and they're going to be, you know, a wide variety of sources. You're not going to know how to cite all of them right away just based on what you've learned in your legal research and writing class. So make sure to use the index. That will help speed up that process for you. Our last bullet point here is to take it seriously. This goes for all parts of the write-on process, but keep in mind this, you know, the Bluebook quiz, this is most in line with what you will be doing as an associate. For the case note, again, I just want to emphasize you are not expected to have mastered how to write a case note before this write-on process starts. I think it's fair to say none of us board members knew what a case note was last year before we started this write-on process. And really important just to keep in mind just the basic, you know, skills you've been learning in your writing class this past year. Use IRAC when you can, write clear sentences, have a clear argument. And again, I just want to emphasize, we will be providing you all of the sources that you need to write the case note. And you are to only use those sources that are included in the packet. But keep in mind, you might not necessarily use all those sources. So again, use your time, you know, judiciously, read the sources, figure out what will work for your argument, and go from there. The last piece of advice is truly just to finish the write-on process. It's 3 weeks. I hate to say there are going to be 3 weeks where you might really come to hate law review and the Bluebook and a case note. But, you know, all of us here on the board, you know, would agree that law review has given us, you know, a ton of benefits this past year. And while the write-on process is not fun, it is worth it to be part of law review. You do not have to master the Bluebook, get every citation correct. You do not have to write the perfect case note, but if you don't finish it, you know, you have no chance of being on law review. So just really work hard to finish the write-on process, and that will drastically increase your chances of getting on. So again, we have plenty of time for questions, but just wanted to emphasize that, you know, there is much more information out there if you have other questions. On our website, we have an FAQ section, has information generally about law review, as well as information specifically about the write-on process. As noted, Professor Knapp will be hosting a session where he goes through how to write a case note. Strongly encourage that you either attend that session or watch the recording afterwards. I know that was really beneficial to me, just to make me even feel a little less nervous about the idea of writing a case note once I had a better idea what it actually was. So that session will be Wednesday, May 19th at 5 p.m. and we will send the Zoom information to everyone who is registered for the write-on process. Additionally, if you have questions that you think of after today, again, feel free to email us notes and comments editors at our Gmail account. And any board member will be more than happy to answer your questions. So if you know a board member, please do reach out to them. They would be happy to you know, answer any questions that you have or tell you a bit more about their experience on law review. So with that, we are going to open it up just to any questions, anything at all. I assure you, if you have a question, someone else will probably benefit from hearing that information as well. Monica, go ahead.
Okay, I'm going to ask the really silly question and count on other people feeling the same. I think I registered for the write-on process, but I honestly can't remember because I feel like law school has sucked my knowledge of anything outside of like con law right now. So is there a way to confirm, or should I just register again? Because I don't want to miss it.
Let's see, Rachel, I think, had to drop off. She kind of is the one manning the registration form. How about this, Monica? We'll double check and email you after the session today, but don't worry, I had the same, I remember having the same feeling last year when I was like, oh my God, middle finals, did I actually register? So don't worry about that.
And I don't think there's any harm in registering twice.
I definitely registered twice, Monica. So.
Oh, and Rachel said she will be happy to send registration confirmations this week. And just a reminder, if you want to tell other classmates who are not here today, registration is open until the 18th, the day after finals.
So I see a question in the chat that says, if we're chosen to be an associate, what kind of time commitment is it once we are on law review? So I would say, without taking your long paper into consideration, it's about 2 to 5 hours per week on average. And you can almost think about it every 2 weeks, probably around 6 hours or so. It does vary based on what your assignments are and how much of a time commitment that is. I know some weeks I put in more work and some weeks I put in very little work. And so it's about 2 to 5 hours every week. And then your long paper is going to add some time onto that. And so I kind of take the long paper a little separately from that.
I also see a question in the chat about whether associates start law review right after they are selected in July during the summer. No, you'll have training, I believe, in the summer before the semester starts is what we did last year. But your kind of work as an associate will begin in the fall once the semester starts.
I want to jump in really quick and go back to Catherine, the question that Catherine had. I just wanted to add that we all know that the semester gets really busy, and if you know something is coming up in advance, you can always just you'll be paired up with a mentor and a managing editor this year. If you know that there's something coming up in advance, you can always let your editor know, and they can always work around that. They can give you either something in advance, or if there's room to push it back, they could do that as well. They could also give you a section that's maybe not as hard or maybe not as many citations to check. So if you are planning ahead and you know that you have something big coming up, or maybe like a big project in another class, you can always let them know.
And then just to go off that point too, Amy put in the chat, and just because I know this is being recorded, I'll just add that as well. It's true, the amount of time that you need to do certain things will get, I mean, as the semester goes on, you're going to get much faster at doing things. And I think that's important to keep in mind as well.
Mark asked, what is the general time frame to complete a given task or assignment? I personally, it might depend on who your managing editor is. They might be able to work things through really fast and they can get it to you early. I think I had maybe 2 weeks for each assignment, if you want to call them that. I don't know if anyone else had a different experience than I did.
I think the average was like an 8 calendar day turnaround time. So typically what happens is you're sort of part of a team with one managing editor leading your team, and your team gets an assignment, and each associate gets a specific, what we call a range of a paper that you're going to edit. And so usually you get that, announced and then have 8 days to complete it. So, whether we'll stick to that exactly in this coming year or not, I think remains to be seen, but I wouldn't imagine that we would deviate very much from that.
And I would just add that I never felt like I had to sacrifice other things that I had to do for law review. It's something you obviously have to work into your schedule, but given a little practice, you'll find that it's, not too difficult, especially with, the amount of time you're given to complete tasks. Sorry, I interrupted you, Mark. Go ahead.
Yeah, I was just going to add that the reason why I'm asking is I travel a lot. So sometimes when I'm gone, but when I'm home, I've got all the time in the world. So I can generally dedicate a lot of time to the work, but sometimes I'll be out of reach for a 3 or 4 day stretch at a time. But if it's generally a 1 week turnaround, that'll work fine for me. Thank you.
Mark, I had a similar situation, at least during fall semester, where between night classes and working, I could only do my work on either a Friday night or a Sunday morning, and it's doable. It's that they give you the range of time and it works. And you know, some people it's easier to break it up into small bits throughout the week, and for some people it's easier just to sit down and do the whole thing at once.
Yeah. All right, thank you.
I can take some of these questions I'm seeing. So just to get some of the easy ones out of the way. So what is the time commitment for the long paper? You will have a semester to write your long paper, slightly less, but and the notes and comments editors will be helping the associates make sure that, like, for example, last year we had very clear deadlines to make sure that we stayed on track throughout the semester. You can choose to do your long paper in the fall or the spring. I believe most of us did ours in the fall last year, but you can all take a look at your schedule and also see what works. To your point, Mark, about perhaps there are certain times when you're more busy and not, that's something you can factor in. The next question was confirming that law review is for credit. Yes, it is for credit. So you will receive as an associate 3 credits, and this is throughout the entire year. So it is a 1-year commitment. So you'll be having authority checks and things like that come in through for most of the year, but your long paper will just be done in either the first or the second semester, if that makes sense. If that doesn't answer your questions, please let me know.
Can I just add to what you're saying here, Catherine, a couple other points, right? So most people did their long paper in the fall because that maximizes your chance of getting published. The publication or editing process leading up to publication can take months. So if you write your long paper in the spring, the editing process is probably not going to, it's going to take too long to edit before, publication opportunities kind of gone. We were also told, I was never in this situation myself, but we were also told best advice is not to take advocacy and do your long paper at the same time, just because it's a ton of writing. I have not taken advocacy yet, so I'm not really speaking with any personal experience, but I'll just note that as well.
And I'll just jump in on that advocacy bit. I know there was one associate last year who did try to do her long paper and advocacy at the same time, and she ended up having to move her long paper to the spring because she couldn't do both, because advocacy is very writing I think it's in a appellate brief. So writing them at the same time and using different areas of the blue book, it just gets to be too much.
So I see 2 questions from Brenda regarding training and feedback. And I'm not exactly sure what you mean by the training, Brenda, but I think in terms of associate training, that you will get some training at the beginning of the school year. So once we kick off with orientation and things like that about what an authority check looks like, what's expected, your managing editor will really run through that and through the expectations of that with you. And then to the point about feedback you'll get when you're done editing beyond the site checks. So you'll be getting feedback from your managing editor. I know that ours would sometimes go through and say, hey, here are a couple of general things I noticed about, everyone kind of missing this, or great job doing X, Y, or Z. And then I know that the notes and comments editors will be providing feedback regarding your long papers as well throughout. They'll be the point people for that. So Brenda, I don't know if that answers your questions.
Yeah, I was just curious about, what kind of feedback you get so your editing improves over the year. Thanks.
Here's a couple questions about how many associates are chosen. I don't know if Catherine or Andy, you want to take that question?
Yeah, I think we expect approximately 40, which is what we've had in this last year. So it could be a little bit more, could be a little bit less, but I would sort of target around 40 overall. I'm also noticing a couple other questions here that I'm happy to address. Time commitment for the long paper. That's really where you get your 3 credits from. So I think school is 45 hours per credit, if I have that right. So you can think of it in those terms. Obviously, some people are going to, because this is really independent, be able to do it in a lot less. So take that for what it's worth. There was also a question about whether the bulk of the work done is in the fall or full year. This has more or less been addressed. I mean, this is a full year commitment to be on law review. As far as the editing goes, putting the long paper aside for a second, the bulk of the editing is done in the fall. And I would say about half of the spring semester is focused on editing. So I think we all edited all the way through February, and then that really kind of stopped as the transition started to take place between the outgoing board and the incoming board. So that may just factor into how you all schedule classes as you look ahead.
And then I see Gabriella just asked a question about, are there any meetings, or is everything all in your own time? So in this sense, we are trying to build a community with associates and between the board and associates. And I know one of the things I enjoyed about being an associate and as a board member is you do get to meet people outside of your program or your section. And so I'm in mainly evening classes. And so it's been great to meet people that are in other programs or in the hybrid program. I think in terms of meetings, a lot of this is on your own time, but we do have associate development opportunities where we might bring in guest speakers or attorneys, networking opportunities like that. And there are some meetings in the beginning that are for orientation. But I would say it's pretty flexible.
And just to make especially clear, you do not have to be a brick and mortar student or a full-time student to participate in law review. You don't even have to be based in Minnesota. As we've learned this year, we can do all of this virtually, and it works just fine.
Yeah, I think even 2 years ago for volume 46, the editor-in-chief was a blended student and she was not based in Minnesota.
So there's a good follow-up question about allocating credits. Thanks for this one, Dana. So what we were told is that you can basically allocate your credits as you choose. So in my case, I allocated my 3 credits for the J term, for example. I think most people allocated their credits in whatever semester they wrote their long paper. So for most of us, that was the fall. Amy's saying don't do that. Anyway, so some people have allocated credits, to one semester and one the other. That's another nice thing about law review. In my case, I had a baby earlier this year, so I really needed to, shift my schedule around a lot. And so doing it over the J term gave me the credits I needed, and I could drop down to sort of the bare minimum this semester, knowing that I'd have kind of more family stuff on my plate. So that's another beauty of the long review.
I just want to jump into sort of the end of Dana's question. For hybrid students, they keep us generally on a part-time schedule. I was not, given my goal of graduating in 3 years, I was not able to keep a part-time schedule with law review. I don't know that anyone actually who wants to do it in 3 years can do all part-time semesters, but law review did bump me up into full-time status. So if you are considering graduating in 3 years in a part-time program or a hybrid program, definitely plot that out because it was an unexpected 3 credits that I needed to put in.
I'm glad so many people have questions about law review, kind of thinking ahead to being on law review. Does anyone have questions about the write-on process specifically? I now can't even remember if it was mentioned in the presentation. We have a handbook that will be provided to everyone that will be posted on our website tomorrow, I believe. And the handbook, again, lists all of the requirements for the write-on process and includes some information about the Bluebook quiz and case note as well. So this is not the only, place to get information about the write-on process, but we are more than happy to answer more questions.
Back to the write-on process, I just wanted to mention a couple of personal reflections about writing on. I think you need to map out the time to do this. You know, you have 3 weeks, but I took a full week to do the Bluebook quiz and a full 2 weeks to do the case note. Ending 1L is, you know, sort of this big relief, and then jumping right into the write-on process is just something to prepare for mentally, and to have that time. So if you were planning a vacation or planning summer classes, it's something to think about. My second tip is 100% watch Professor Knapp's How to Write a Case Note. You can watch it live, in which case you can ask questions, but I watched it recorded and it was the most helpful. It will demystify the whole process. 100% watch that. And I would say that the write-on is not fun per se, but just doing the write-on, whether you end up on law review or not, finishing that was one of the biggest confidence boosters and points of pride, self-pride. It was such an incredible experience to finish it. I couldn't recommend doing it more, even though it was a lot. So plan that time and definitely finish it. The best advice that we got from the board who came before was finish it. Even if it's not the thing you're most proud of, finish it.
Can I jump there too? Hi everyone, this is Rachel again. And Deb, that was such great advice. And I would also like to pass on advice that I heard from the board members last year, which is to cite your sources in your case note as you use them. Don't tell yourself you're going to go back and find the sources and then add it in later, because it is the worst and you don't want to end up in that situation. So just put in the work up front and at least include a short cite and a pin cite to where you found the information.
Those are really great tips, Rachel, and welcome back, by the way. I wanted to share my personal experience with the case note. One, like Deb said, watch Professor Knapp's video. I think I watched it at least 6 or 7 times doing the process, because I would get to a point where I'm like, what am I supposed to do now? I have no idea. So that I'll go back, and he makes it really clear about how to write it. And also a feeling that I had about halfway through, especially being younger in my law school career, is I didn't feel that I had anything to say or could, you know, speak on whether the Supreme Court got it right or who got it wrong. And yeah, it's normal to have that feeling, but just know that you are in law school for a reason. You made it here, you can do it, and you do have something to say. So when you get that feeling, just know we all had that feeling, but just keep your confidence in knowing that you can do it.
I think just echoing everything that everyone else has said, I think is just really valuable advice. And I had the same experience. I feel like I watched Professor Knapp's video multiple times throughout the process, and it was really helpful to just give you a confidence boost. I think, Sheena, you put that the best way is, I mean, you may doubt yourself during this process, and that's okay. That's normal, and you're not alone in that. And so just to reiterate, just work on finishing it, set aside the time. There was one question about like how long to, I think it was, yeah, how many hours would you suggest we allocate? So I've really tried to think about what I did last year, and maybe one of the other board members remembers a little better, but I was working full time and I fit this in on the weekends and maybe a couple of evenings, but just for the, you have the amount of time that you have, just like in law school. And I think if you can just plan ahead, see what works for you, think about when you work best. Do you work best in the morning, evening? I know for me, I would really spend most of my time on the weekend and was able to check my work throughout the week. But I'm curious to hear if any other board members, maybe those, if you're a full-time student or hybrid, what people's experiences were.
I think I would just jump in and say that that's a really difficult question to answer. One, because there's no correct number of hours. I mean, as Catherine said, you have as much time as you have. And for some people, the Bluebook quiz might be a breeze. For other people, maybe they read the case note and you're the case and they immediately know what they want to write about. Other people, they might have to read through it a couple of times before they, come up with an idea they're comfortable with. There's no right or wrong answer for how much time you should spend on it. I would, however, recommend that you start early. These are tasks that are, I'm guessing, completely new to everyone. So give yourself time to, have the time to work on them. Sarah, I think you were going to add something as well.
I was just going to say, I don't know if I necessarily set aside certain increments of time. I more so did it in a way where I was like, today is Tuesday the 10th, and I am going to get my history section done. Like, I don't care if I'm up till 4 a.m. It's going to get done today because it has to. So I was working full time and taking classes and stuff, and I was able to do it with that kind of mindset of making a list of this is when this section needs to be done. This is when this section needs to be done. And I found that really helpful, especially if you don't have a lot of time on your hands. It just kind of gives you a little bit of accountability, I guess, to yourself.
I think I made sure that
Sorry, Sheena, you go ahead.
I think I just made sure I touched on it a little bit each day. So I didn't really skip a day because, I mean, the time can really sneak up on you. But I touched on a little bit and just did it until I got interrupted. I think at that time my son was 15 months, so I often got interrupted. So as long as I sat down at the computer for, whatever time, uninterrupted time I had, I was able to get it done.
Yeah, I would just definitely open the materials that, the morning you get them, just to at least know what you're sort of up against. I read my case, I think within the first hour or two that I had received it. And it was, I'll admit, a bit of a scary feeling for me because I read through the majority's opinion, the two dissenting opinions, kind of like kept waiting for the punchline, and like it just didn't ever show up for me, right? So that was a little nerve-wracking, right? But at least I had gotten that done, and it gave me some time to think about, what am I really up against as far as, fashioning some sort of an argument, and, what sort of research I needed to do. So I think all the advice you've gotten from everyone here has been good, but I would just say open it early and sort of see what you're up against. But, you can absolutely get it accomplished.
Can I also jump in and add a specific thing to consider this year is that because you will have all the research done for you, that doesn't mean that you have to use every single research piece that we're handing you in the packet. So this is a little different than previous years. So if you ask us for advice, we're not going to be able to relate exactly to you, but all of the research that like Closed Universe will be handed directly to you. And so our goal in this is to give you enough to craft arguments from either side and maybe bring out different policy arguments, but that means you don't need to incorporate every single perspective in your case note. Choose one argument and stick with it.
There was a question in the chat, and I just want to say it out loud for the recording. So someone asked whether the Bluebook and the case note were kind of happening synchronously, and the Bluebook will be for about 6 days. That will end, and then the case note will begin and end after about 2 weeks. So you're not going to be doing both at the same time.
I want to just add something about advocacy. If you are a hybrid student and taking advocacy, it's not the greatest. It's a lot of writing if you do your long paper in the fall, but I did it. So it can be done. Again, if you have flexibility in your schedule, definitely consider allocating your credits wisely, as many have said, and really think about, I had not been plotting out like my course to graduation yet, and it really helped to do that earlier. That's just a general tip, but certainly trying to fit law review in, that'll help. But you can, if you have to do advocacy, don't not do law review because there's a lot of writing. You can do it. It is just a lot of writing. oh, and the last thing I want to say is an unexpected awesome thing was about Law Review is the social aspect, as has been mentioned, but speaking to 3Ls, what professors they had, what classes they took, it's really an amazing way to connect, particularly for a distance student who wouldn't have gotten to meet people on campus and stuff. So it was really, really great.
Any more questions?
Just remember also, you have our the email address to reach the notes and comments editors. Please reach out if you do have additional questions. Thanks, Sheena. It's the Gmail address on the slide right now. Reach out if you have questions. One of us 4 notes and comments editors will be sure to respond promptly. But if there are no more questions today, I guess we'll let you go and enjoy the rest of your Sunday evening. Thanks so much for joining us today.
Thanks everyone for coming.
Thank you.